In this lesson, we're going to take a look at 3D shapes, three-dimensional shapes. They have length, width, and height. Basically, what we're going to do is just go through and identify what they're called. And we're also going to take a look at, if you laid the shape flat, what would the base of it be? What shape would it be? So we're going to start off with a cube. 6 sides, 6 faces, which are my flat, open sides to a cube. If I would lay this down, what shape is the base? Shape of it is a square. Next up, a rectangular prism. Okay, rectangular on both sides, has a length, a width, and a height. What would the base of that look like? So you have to imagine this object laid down. What would the bottom shape be? Bottom shape would be a rectangle. Now, I'm going to talk more about prisms later, so I'm going to put a star here and we'll come back and take a look at different versions of prisms. Next up, a cylinder. Soda cans, canned veggies, canned fruit. What would the base be? If I sat it flat, well, take a look. What shape is the base? It's a circle. Next up, a pyramid. There are 2 types of pyramids. You can have a rectangular pyramid, where the bottom would be a rectangle, or square, depending if all the sides are equal. The other kind of pyramid I could have would be a triangular pyramid, where the base is a triangle, and the vertices work up to a center point. So it depends on what type you have. I could have the base as a triangle if I sat that object flat. The last type is a cone. So think of a snow cone. The cup that you hold it in, flip it upside down, is a cone. Look at the base of this object. What is the base? It's a circle. Now, I said I would talk more about prisms. Prisms, we're used to seeing a rectangular prism, like a shoebox. But you can have almost any kind of prism you want. And it gets determined by what is the front shape, to make it real easy. So if I made a triangular prism, my front shape is a triangle. Draw my pieces back, and I would have a triangular prism. Think about what the base would be. Well, what's it sitting on? Again, you would have to look at how the picture is, but if it's sitting like this, ask yourself, what shape is that? Well, it's not the triangular side that it's sitting on. It's actually a rectangle. I could move myself up the number of sides to it. I could have a 5-sided, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would be a pentagonal prism. Pentagon meaning 5-sided polygon. So I could have a 5-sided, again, I would just draw all my lines back. It gets a lot dicier as you start drawing more sides to it. Nevertheless, it's still a prism defined by the front. So this would be a pentagonal prism. Pentagon meaning 5. Pentagonal prism. What's the base? Well, take a look at the piece that's sitting on the floor. It's still a rectangle. So my base would be a rectangle. Okay, are you picking up on a pattern yet? Triangular prism, rectangle. Pentagonal prism, rectangle. I could move myself up. 6-sided. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This would be a hexagonal prism. Now I'm not going to draw it all back, but you can imagine, what would the base look like? Well, the base is a rectangle. Okay. I could have more sides. I could have an 8-sided, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Draw all of those sides back. And I would have an octagonal prism. What would the base be? It's going to be a rectangle again. Now, again, it doesn't stop there. You just have to figure out what your prefixes are. Okay? Triangular prism. Pentagonal prism. 5-sided pentagon. 6-sided hexagonal. 8-sided octagon. I could do 7-sided. Put him in here. 7 sides. That's heptagonal. H-E-P-T-A. Gonal. That would be a heptagonal prism. Okay? I could have a 10-sided, a decagonal. So there is a prefix for every number of sides. You could do Google to figure out if you needed a number that wasn't up here, like a 9-sided or anything like that. But I wanted to take a second just to go through prisms of how it's not just a rectangular prism defined by the front shape. It could be a triangular prism, etc. Now notice, these were all bases that had a rectangle. But if I took any one of these and turned it and sat it up on its face, well, what would the bottom be? It would depend on what shape it was. Is it a triangle? If it's up on the triangle side, then it's a triangle. Pentagon, then it's a pentagon. But if they're laying flat, all of the sides that go around are rectangles. So again, these are the main 3D shapes and what their bases are, what shape the base makes. The last part I'm going to go through with you real quick is the nets. Now, we did nets a long time ago. Nets are a 2D flat object that when you fold up makes a 3D shape. So we're going to go back through, and if you remember, a cube has 6 faces to it. So if I flattened it out, I would have 6 squares attached that when I folded it up would make a cube. A rectangular prism has 6 faces to it. But you have to kind of pay attention to the lengths of the sides. Okay? You would have some short pieces and some longer pieces. That when these 4 folded up, that would make the sides. This big piece would flip back over to make the top. So that would be a rectangular prism. Now, I want to try to work you through a little bit of the other shapes that are a little bit stranger to look at. For instance, a cylinder. Well, if you started cutting apart a soda can or a soup can, think about the pieces that it takes to make up. Simply said, it's got a circle up top, it's got a circle on the bottom. So my net is going to have 2 circles in it. But I want you to think about this. If you had a soup can, you cut off the top and cut off the bottom, you'd have 2 circles. What do you have left? Well, you have this tube that you're looking through. But remember, it's got to be flat. So if you took the tube, cut scissors through it, and opened it up, what shape would you have? If I took scissors, cut this tube, and flattened it out, you would actually have a rectangle. A rectangle that would curl around to make the cylinder. I would have a circle up top, and I would have a circle on the bottom. Does it matter where the circles are? No, because when you wrap the tube around, it pulls the circles back together for one on top, one on the bottom. A square pyramid, or a rectangular pyramid. Why? Because the bottom shape, the base, is a rectangle. If you flatten this out, you would have the rectangular base. How many triangles? 1, 2, 3, 4. Each triangle would fold up to the middle and make a triangular pyramid. A rectangular pyramid. A cone. If I flattened a cone out, I have a circle, and then I have this piece. It's kind of like a cylinder that if I cut down the middle, it would open up. But take a look. This end is wider than this end. This end comes to a point. As you start moving up the cone, it starts widening out. That would be the net of a cone. Circle on top, and when you take this triangular piece, wrap it together, this end would touch sooner than the top end. which would make it thinner at one end, wider at the other. Up next, a triangular prism. If I would start to flatten this out, I would have the base, sorry, let me do this in red. I would have the base. One side that folds up would be a rectangle. The other side that folds up, imagine the sides of a tent. Rectangle, rectangle, folds up to angle to make the tent. What's the front of the tent? Triangle. What's the back of the tent? Triangle. So when my triangle folds up, two rectangles fold in, I get a triangular pyramid. Or, I'm sorry, a triangular prism. Now, if this was an octagonal, if I had an 8-sided object in the front, guess what would change? This, I would have my octagon here. I would have an octagon here. I would fold these up, and then you'd have to think, okay, how many of these pieces would I need to not only wrap up, but wrap for each part of the octagon? Okay. Well, there's 8 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I would need 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm running out of room. 7, 8. So that would be an octagonal prism, again, depending on what the front was. So I just wanted to take a moment to kind of go through what some of these newer shapes look like when you flatten them out into a net. Cylinder, rectangular pyramid, cone, and a triangular prism.